Good evening, everyone that's here at the Cincinnati Union Terminal and everyone that's online watching this program this evening. Our presenter is Frank Keller. He's going to be taking us through a beautiful tour of the Alaskan Railway. Frank, good evening and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. Good afternoon from a cold, rainy Anchorage, Alaska. I guess it might be evening there, but still afternoon here. So I just thought I would share some of my favorite photos of the Alaska Road that I've taken over the last 16 years. About ready to retire, and I'll be moving to my home in Kentucky, so I'll be a lot closer. So I'll just start with this one. The Alaska Railroad serves quite a few military installations. This one here, Fort Wainwright, Alaska, up by Fairbanks. They decided they wanted to run a military operation with railroad support, and their goal was to see if they might be able to land a Black Hawk helicopter on a flat car to provide support for injured military members or what have you. So I believe they did it successfully. This is kind of a series of them overhead and then coming in for a landing here, and then successfully on the flat car on the bridge over the frozen Chena River overflow. So pretty interesting event. So several military moves throughout the year. This is probably my favorite one that I've witnessed. So the rest of these are just kind of random. Quality will vary based on my time here in Alaska, but some of my favorites in various forms. I'm trying to just give a little background on each photo as I see them. So this is summertime here in Alaska. We run a nightly freight between Anchorage and Fairbanks 6 nights a week. So this is probably somewhere around 9:30 at night. That are the Chugach Mountains in the background, in particular Twin Peaks, on a beautiful summer evening. These trains can vary. You can see we got a UP leaser in there. We're extremely short of power. We have 6 UP leasers up here, along with 4 we bought from other railroads that have been repainted. These ones will go back at the end of the season. But summer. This is the southbound Denali Star around 7, hugging the cliffs. That's the top of Twin Peaks that you saw in the other photos, obscured by clouds. Got a lucky sun break here. This is roughly 30 miles from Anchorage, about 7:15 in the evening. This is what we call CPF 120, which is the junction of the Whittier Bridge with the main line from Anchorage to Seward. The freight coming off the Whittier Bridge, you can still see it's treated rail. A lot of Alaska roads have been converted to welded rail recently, but the branch is not been converted yet, although it's in the budget for next year. Even though those mountains look massive, they're really not that tall, probably in the 7,000 range, but they certainly, from sea level, dwarf the train. Alaska's full of a lot of trees and a lot of water. It's hard to not see either. So this is along Willow Creek, about mile 187 or so, by about 10:30 at night. Probably closer to like solstice time. You can get light through the whole evening. Again, one of the nightly freights. A little bigger view of the freight crossing the Matanuska River. Chugach trains in the background, Pioneer Peak, Twin, and in between those two, which you can't really see in this view, but is Knik Glacier. Milepost 146, I'm sorry, 145, curving along the foothills. There's variety. Interestingly, when the Alaska Road leaves Anchorage, it immediately hops into Fort or Elmendorf Air Force Base, versus Fort Richardson before it actually accesses any public space, and actually going in the eastward direction. So it's anytime you shoot these trains between milepost 114 and milepost 147, they're going east, and then they'll make a 180-degree turn and go west around Kinnickinnick before eventually turning north. So there's a lot of interesting opportunities. Like this one with reflectors, mentioned earlier, lots of water. Again, a little wider view with the UP unit in there, a little bit of sunshine. One of the nice things about Alaska is just a low sun level throughout the year. A little bigger view around milepost 151. Unless it's the dog days of summer from June 10th to like maybe July 1st, uh, it's very difficult to get any shot of the freight that aren't fairly near to either Anchorage or Fairbanks, because that's the only time it's light. Summertime, you can look further out and start to get out there in the middle of the railroad line, like Cantwell and Denali Park. You can actually get some shots where it's normally dark. This is this I call their heritage unit. This is their centennial unit, 100th year, the one and only on the property. Hoping that we might get one for the 250th, and we'll see. But for now, we have this is on the southern end. This is south of me, bringing the coastal line from Seward Day. This is probably roughly 9:45 in the evening. This is the highest peak, Denali here in the background. Wintertime, great view. You got three there, four, and Denali. This is the south freight. In the wintertime, this will be running very late. Well, it's daylight. I've had some problems. My guess is the number of moose. In the wintertime, the moose tend to run down the middle of the track, so there's a lot of snow. And either the trains have to go very slow or eventually just run them over, which is unfortunate. Moose aren't necessarily that bright. Crossing the Sky River going the opposite direction. So this is our through the summertime. Either we run at least 2 hours a day, but sometimes it can be as many as 4, depending on what's needed for the construction season. Right now, this is the AS&G gravel train coming off the Palmer branch, running with 1 and 1 on each end. Not my favorite arrangement, but it is. And you can look very far back there after these 80 cars. You can see the rear DP unit way back there. Those are the mountains. This is it across the board. This is the rear unit. Fortunately, those power lines are a recent addition and really mark the beauty of this area, in my opinion. But that's the way it goes sometimes. Following the gravel into town, this is would be Midtown Anchorage, crossing Diamond Boulevard, headed to the dump pit, Anchorage, where they'll dump these loads. 280 cars a day currently running. So keeps things busy. These are on they'll leave Anchorage at 4:30 in the morning. Go out to Palm, load, come here to South Anchorage, unload, back to Anchorage by 16:30, and start all over again. This is a freight Whittier. That Girdwood, that's the Girdwood Valley in the background. Interesting thing about this business, freight cars, these come in on barge, rail barge, yeah, Whittier unload, and then we load them back, send them back to interchange. So it's either CN, BN, SF, and UP, all interchange Seattle. 2016 and before CN barge, but they quit running that, so now everything is through Seattle. So this is turning it on, part of Cook Inlet. Basically, if you look at a map, there's big bodies of water like north and east from Anchorage. and road follows this body walk for some 50 miles between Portage and Anchorage. So this is very near my house in South Anchorage, so you can see how Alaska is. So usually each barge that comes up from Seattle, usually it's 4 trains. We have the first train down is a pair of Jeeps like we see here. They'll bring all the interchange cars and load empties. So the loaded, we call them load empties. They're basically empty containers headed back to Seattle. And then they will discharge the barge, which will unload all the rail cars plus unload all the containers. And then we'll have a turn that will run out of Anchorage. It'll be a freight turn. It'll be usually 2 or 3 men. They'll bring down all the containers and they'll unload the containers. They'll bring back the first cars off the barge. And then the last train will be the Jeeps coming back. That'll bring the balance of the containers and wrap up the operation. So Sarah's been busy these last couple of years. And so we've been running pretty much, normally it's 1 barge a week. We've been averaging about 78, 1.5 barges a week. So every other week, barges. So some wintertime stuff. Some barges do go, which is what this was, the Seward barge. And they bring in the lumber, all the loose, they bring lumber, pipe, frac sand, that sort of stuff. So got a couple of Macs, a couple of Jeeps coming up from Seward. Those are the Kenai Mountains in the back, crossing the creek. And we definitely use some snow plows. This is our George spreader, number 9, and we got number 8 on the other end. This is at Cantwell, Alaska. This about, I don't know, 20 miles from there. 318, almost 318 in the dead of winter. These are some of the shortest days of the year light-wise. So sunrise is somewhere around 10:30, 11 o'clock. Sets in this area. Not a lot of available sun. The sun you can see is our never actually any locomotive the whole. Managers get empty military ready to Fort Richardson loaded. This is a off season, the first season where it's pretty stark before things start to green up. And once they start to green, it's usually like an overnight. You come here one day it's like this, the next day everything's leaked out. We have 3 of these G40-2s left in the original black and yellow. These are my favorites. This one was last one that was painted into the new modern scheme, so it doesn't exist anymore. But there are 3 of these left. This is on Elmendorf Air Force Base, roughly milepost 119, about 5 miles from Anchorage. And in the fall, coming to an on-time arrival. Frac sand in the Portage Valley. This is one of the first attempts at bagging the sand. Ultimately, they decided to start bringing it in containers. These are all like super sacks, frac sand that loaded on these flat cars with stakes, and then taken up to Fairbanks, and then trucked up to the north. Train coming off the Whittier Branch. You have in the background, you can't really see it here. Another view, there's Portage Glacier, and again, like I said, there's water pretty much everywhere. This is a gigantic Y between the Seward and line to Whittier. So just back to the train, a train length or so, there's the tail end of the Y, which then allow the train to either go to Seward or Anchorage. This is Brookman. The work. This is the work train here. They have a company work train, not a revenue train that does balance and things like that. So they're in here in the hole for another train, which get passed by freight from. Had 2 of the black and golds, which is kind of a rare treat. Nice rainbow. See, it just had stopped raining. Sun came out. some stark winter shots. Previous shot, well, this winter. Winters are long, cold, forgiving, which is why I'm moving into this other time. Again, some more winter. This is tail end of winter. This is April type thing. We call it breakup. Oh, the snow starts to melt. Just to give you an example, 2 years ago, my wife retired. We bought a house in Kentucky. We sold our house here in South Anchorage. It was a big snow year. We put the house on the market on April 30th, and we still had like 4 feet of snow in our frame. It can be, the winters are hit or miss. This winter here was pretty mild, too much snow. You just never know. Again, you can see how the tracks wind all along the side of the road. That's Seward Highway, Alaska Road, and then you got the Tree Mountains. Those are white mountains in the distance. That's the Alaska Range, all the way out to Dutch Harbor and all the way out there. This is Cook Inlet right here. Another view of the Alaska Range. This is coming into Anchor Yard. That's the passenger lane to the left. And they're entering the yard here at Anchorage. This is a winter shot there. A very slide prone area. Slide zone 72. Slide zone of the railroad. Managed to have a train trapped last year in this area. Seward train headed loaded at sunrise. A nice returning coastal classic in summertime. This is really a pretty train to ride back if you get a nice sunny day. On days like this, the passengers I know are super happy, but on a day like we're having today, you can't even see them. I wonder if they really feel like they're getting their money's worth. That's the view they had looking the other direction. So, pretty remarkable, in my opinion. We have our own little mini tunnel district. Big Rio Grande fan. Up on the hill, go Portage and Seward. We climb up to 3% grade, and we have a series of 5 tunnels that we pass through. This is tunnel number 5, and exit out onto this bridge crossing the Alaska River. It's our DMU car. Usually runs on the Glacier Discovery. It's the only one we have. Thankfully, it does not work very well. In fact, they no longer use it as they can operate the train from there, but they don't use it as motive power anymore. So it's just really a cab car. They get a little better view as they come up the mountain, the tunnel rather. So, yeah, not the prettiest. Some end of the day shots. I'm post 98 or so. Get some great sunset, sunrise. Good point. Good area to see a lot of beluga whales in the beginning of the season, end of the season. Very beautiful area. Lots of visitors there. Big parking areas to pull off and take in the view. It's the Portage Valley. That's the Portage Glacier in the background. This flower in the foreground is fireweed. This is how we tell our progression of summer. You can look at the fireweed here and realize that summer is half over because the fireweed's only halfway done. The longer summer gets, the more those fill up. And when it gets to the top, that's it. Summer's over. This is the coastal class Seward. This will be an Anchorage Whittier turn. This turn freight's coming out of the Whittier branch. So these can often run 9,000 feet long. Barge brings up to 50 rail cars and about 300 containers. And literally you can see anything, any kind of rail car, any type. Any type of thing that can be shipped in a container or on top of a container or on a flat car will come in on these barges. This is the work train at north end of Brooklyn Siding. You can see those mountains look massive there. Work train still operates. Operating cabooses on the railroad. So they one for the work train, one for the B&B crew. This is at Bird Point, just crossed under the Seward Highway, and that's the Kenai Mountains in the distance. Coastal Classic at Portage. You can see Milepost 64. A little closer view. This, like I said, is a beautiful train to ride. This is the southbound freight, taken at about 1 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of, probably towards the end of June, actually. So if you're willing to stay up late, you can get some very unique photos here in this area. This is about, well, roughly 100 miles from Fairbanks, give or take. This is our work train at Girdwood with all three of the current paint schemes on the railroad. The current modern scheme on 3009, then the scheme before that with the big bold Alaska on the side, with those two are Jeep 38s, and then of course the original black and yellow, and then of course the caboose bringing up the rear. So this is a welded rail train. We kind of make our own welded rail here. Got to do a lot of these types of things up here. Paint our own locomotives, do our own welded rail, try and do as much in-house as possible. This is just coming out of Fort Richardson at Beach Lake, the closest place you can access the railroad without being on the military installation. This is about ready to cross under Seward Highway at Bird Point. And really, like I said, some steep mountains there. The view isn't, mountains aren't as big as they appear. Again, another shot of the caboose. Glacier Discovery coming back from Whittier. So we send down a couple of trains a day to Whittier, faster trains to Whittier in the summertime. One goes to Seward. We have this is the one returning from Whittier. We use at 9:30 in the morning, goes into Whittier, drop passengers off, and then we'll run up the mountain to take you hiking or let you go pack rafting or climb a glacier. You can see Portage Glacier in the background. Frac Sand approaching Outpost 72, which is our very slide prone area. And I think somewhere in here we might have a few shots of some slides. Again, little aerial view. This is at Portage. You can see the Y there between the Whittier branch and the main line. And so we do have trains reverse both sides of the Y. Some trains come down from Anchorage, go to Whittier, and then when they come back, they'll go down to Seward. One of the freights along the Turnagain Arm. Sometimes they're right at road level, sometimes they're down below, and it varies along that 50 miles. You can see here we're at road level. Jeeps seem to be a favorite of people that visit Alaska. They really like seeing the Jeeps. Standard cabs, I guess. This is what we call the ghost forest, result of the 1964 earthquake when the land separated by 10, 15, 20 feet, and the ocean water inundated this area and basically pickled these trees that had been in a state for a very long time. There's more than a few places you can see this along the railroad. I think we saw that one already. So we got some maintenance way equipment going north. This is actually the first cross. This is Beach Lake Crossing, the first place you can actually access the road if you want photos without being on a military installation, which is milepost 133. So roughly 19 miles from the start of the journey before you can actually see the railroad. unless you happen to have a military pass. Yeah, these 3009, 3008, 3010 kind of remind me of SPs with the L-shaped windows and Mars lights. They're original Alaska colored, but you just give me that reminder of SP locomotives. One of two signal bridges on the railroad. This is by the old freight shed, which has been converted into business use. It's just a work train rolling through town, and then in the background you can see a passenger train at the depot. This is north of Denali Park, probably like somewhere like 5 in the morning, headed to Fairbanks. And this is in the most maintenance-prone part of the railroad. This is in Healy Canyon, sometimes known as Nenana Canyon. That's the Nenana River alongside the railroad down below. And so it's pretty slow tracking here. Lots of slides. A number of those those pony truss bridges over various little areas. There's 3 or 4 of them in here. There also were tunnels in this that were daylighted. A little vertical view of the town. There's a little maintenance area called Garn that they can drive into from the main road. You can see way up top there. You can see a good, probably 200 feet below the road. Empty rail train. Yeah. Lots of greenery in the summer. This is at Girdwood. Kenai Mountain in the background. That's a hiking trail there. They call it the Gird to Bird Trail. All paved like that for 20 miles between Girdwood and all the way as far north. That's the petrified forest. They're a little better look at it. All pickled trees. So this is milepost 70. You can see lots of mountains, lots of snow. One of the favorite places that people like to photograph. Lots of different views can be had from this area. I threw that one in as a bonus. Anyone likes to take airplane pictures? Anchorage Airport's not a bad place to see some prop every now and then. I think it's fine. I don't know what this is. See something. Milepost 360. Freight train approaching Healy. Again, this is probably midnight or so, maybe even a little bit past midnight. Still plenty of sun in the sky. You still see lots of opportunity. The sun this is probably close to solstice time, so it probably doesn't set till something like, and it never really sets. It's below the mountains, but 2, 3 in the morning, you can still be shooting grass here. Various flowers. This is at Runyon. This is the common place for and dog catch crews. The very limit of the Fairbanks terminal. This is Bird Point. This is in the summertime. This is the very first place that you'll find light. This part's anchored at 6:45. Even in the days, it might be light in Anchorage. Mountains block a lot of the sun. You don't actually get any light in this point here, but once it rises above the pretty nice light. Caboose 1092 again on the end of the work at Crown Point, Alaska. Well, across Upper Trail Lake at Moose Pass. This is one of the Seward freights coming out of Seward, and you got the float plane there. Very Alaskan image. This is a newer version of the bridge that has the concrete piles. When I first arrived in Alaska, it was still wood. The road's slowly making. And the caboose. This would be a Whittier turn headed down to Whittier at Beluga. Again, interestingly, there are many places you can be right next to the tracks, but you can't see the trains because the trees are so thick. There are other spots where it's just super easy to see, mostly from South Anchorage. Anchorage South is a little bit easier to view the tracks than Anchorage North. Bird Point in the summertime or winter time rather. Yeah. A little different view, but the pretty much same location as the other. Well, perspective of that same shot with all the mountains, that is Portage Glacier and Skookum Glacier in the background. This is right alongside the highway. That's Fireweed alongside. You can see early summer in the shot. Still got plenty of snow on the mountains. This is taken on Richardson, the southbound Denali Star, going through the base. Little winter Whittier freight. You can see they vary a lot. It's the last train back from the barge. You can always tell because it'll be Jeeps and it'll have containers, no loose car freight, no freight trains. They're all containers. And you can see this one has this is off the Canadian when the Canadian barge. It was really nice to see the Canadian barge. They had a different type of barge, and it allowed us a little bit more loose car freight. The work train early in the morning along about a town called Indian along Jernigan Arm. You see a little bit of fog coming off the Jernigan Arm. Interesting effects. Little view from ground at the North Freight. Twin Peaks in the background. Some really nice evening light. I mean, the tonnage is very high. We get, in addition to the barges that come in Whittier, we also get ro-ro ships, roll-on flop ships that come into the port of Anchorage that bring in containers. I'm not going to trailers. So they'll run it off, and then they'll bring them up, they'll drag them over to the Anchorage yard, and they'll put them on the back of these trains that head to Fairbanks. So those days are Sundays. Sometimes you can see upwards of 100 trailers on there Tuesday that headed to Fairbanks. And the other days, this is probably not one of those days because it's just 2 units, but they do DP time with the bigger ones. But before this is a export coal train bound for a while, from roughly 2008 when I first came here to 2016. Railroad run an export coal train with loading ships at Seward. It would go to either Chile, South Korea, various places like that, Peru. And they exported the coal there from the Usability coal mine up around those 633. So these are great trains to chase. Winter, they ran on a 3-time. Well, actually, they ran either they had 2 train sets going, or one. You could always get a train every single where the other, either a load or an empty every day of the week, and they ran in the daylight, 7 o'clock out of Anchorage. So even on a winter's day like this, you could still catch them. The sun hasn't quite cleared the Chugach Mountain yet, but still made for a nice shot. There's probably a number of these in here. Then the empty coal train comes back. So they usually went down with 3. Well, they did in various configurations: 3, 3, and 1. Ultimately, they went with just 3 and 3. So the empties came back, usually 6 on the head end. My guess is they left 3 in Seward because we probably had a barge that was going to unload, and they're going to use that to bring a Seward freight back. So nice passenger train shot in Cantwell. One summer while, be very green. Usually their preferred method of running these trains are, at this time, were just like this, in elephant style, on 2 on the head end, 2 max on the head end. Both of these are provided max, but A few years ago, we had an incident in the wintertime where we had one of them break down. In the wintertime, it was like minus 40 degrees, and there was some coldness on the train, so they started running in the wintertime with a third unit on the rear of the train solely for HEP. And then these two were those are style. They made them back to back, so that way, if in the event one broke down, they'd have support there. So now the winter trains run with three units. A very late running, actually a daylight freight, because this shot is at Cantwell, probably like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a train. I left Fairbanks at probably like 10 or something like that. Here at Cantwell, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. We don't generally run unless something happens. Export coal train at we around in this big curve there. Little northern lights on it. Max. Yeah, you can see some every now and then, even with the ambient light. So uh, lights can get pretty strong sometimes. This is at CP 1140 setting over the Chugach range with some alpenglow cars on the OBL spur. Sunset on a train bound for Seward. The dead giveaway is 2 Max and 50 flat cars with nothing on it. Those you can almost guaranteed are going to be going to Seward. Big slide zone here. The train coming out of Portage Tunnel there, and they had to clear that slide across the railroad and into the Placer Creek there. Railroad shut down for a number of days, but they cleared that up. It's the first train out. And then another slide a little further up the line. This is coming into Windy Point. But that's those are the same mountains way back there at Portage. Cruise ship in Whittier. One of the passenger trains are crossing Whittier Creek with one of the Princess Cruise Lines there in Prince William Sound. That is the Inn at Whittier, right? A great place to stay if you visit Whittier. Whittier is a very unusual town. It's got the only railroad road shared tunnel into town. You can only get into the town via automobile via the railroad. And pretty much everybody that lives in Whittier lives, 95% of them live in the same building. Military town. On the causeway approaching Portage. And this is what we would call the Whittier turn because it's got 2 Max and a bunch of containers. One of the military trains rounding the curve there at Beach Lake with if you got mountains in the background. Spreader on the south end. It doesn't look like you needed a spreader there, and they didn't. But once they get past Portage, you start the 3% grade up into the Grandview Hill. The snow accumulates quick. So they were going to clear some snow. This is a coastal classic down by Seward, about boat 18 or so along Kenai Lake. More water, of course. This is a very big lake and it's world famous fishing. The Alaska Road runs a ferry train at the end of August. They're going to train out to the state fair in Palmer. So they will park the train there at the depot. Good opportunity to get first weekend of the fair. They always have a big fireworks show, so took an opportunity to get some shots there. If you get this is a return to Coastal Classic 99 and some great evening light. And again, the Coastal Classic. You can see there's the Brookman Tourniquet Arm to the right, background, highway to the left. This area used to be called Bird. However, in the early 80s, there was a big avalanche here. And one of the railroad's maintenance way employees, Kerry Brookman, was cleaning up the slide when another slide came down and buried him. They named it in his honor. Lumber train coming out of that DP unit. That's the Alaska Range and gravel train before they switched to DP. Two units up ahead and much preferred by myself. They were meeting a passenger train there at that deciding. This was an NRHS train that came here a few years ago. I think like maybe 2012 for a large part of the track, a train ride all the trackage, except for a few obscure pieces. I heard it was a great event. Denali Star headed north at Broad Pass. A very rainy, overcast day. Fireweed in the foreground, really saturated from the rain, really looked good. Alaska Road's kind of unusual. They still purchase photos for advertising. They have an advertising department, a marketing department still sending out photos, making advertising with photos. This is one of those ones that they use for some of their brochures years ago and still use it from time to time now. That's Mountain sitting in the background with a clear turn curving off the Tourniquet Arm towards Potter. 99. The export coal train at Camp Section House down this is in the fall. Falls are really not the fall colors start here in early September up north, and then slowly move down through Anchorage and then on to Seward, from probably ending somewhere around the middle of October on the good years. So a lot of variety of colors. This is my first quick took it the Coastal Classic at basically Brooklyn, setting sun like 9:30 at night. Another shot of the export coal approaching. They just crossed the Chulitna River path in the fall colors. Now you can see that's at Summit, across the Continental Divide at Summit. You can see they're headed towards the mountain in the distance. It's crossed under the Parks Highway to that area and eventually end up in those mountains in the background. Crossing the Matanuska River. See a lot of trailers on this train. Another shot of a southbound train for Whittier. Plowing some snow there around milepost 74 or so. Curving off the branch, curving onto the bed from Portage, CPF 120. Blueberry Hill in the back, 20 Mile Valley to the right. Freight crossing the Knik River. That's Knik. I call it Nick River for a long time. Someone finally corrected me and said it is Knik. So you got Twin Peaks and Pioneer Peak there. This is a train coming out of, it's in between the two tunnels, between the Anton Anderson Memorial Tunnel to the right, which is a tunnel coming out of Whittier. Seeing Plaster Creek in the Portage Tunnel. I think it's Bear Valley in the background, Bear Valley Glacier. This is the export coal train crossing Trail Creek. This is the path before they rebuilt it. The float plane in the sky. Great photos. This is one of the iconic trucks. Right. This is Hurricane Gulch Bridge. Uh, Hurricane Gulch. Before it became common to have a drone, the way you could get the shot was to hike 1 mile through the woods to get the shot, which I did on a number of occasions. It was about a mile hike, and you got to be really wary of bears. Never saw one, but I saw lots. This is the hurricane tourists. They come out to the bridge, sit on the bridge, let passers take a look. You can see them there in the baggage car with the baggage car door open, looking out. There's no railing on this side of the train, but you can see the railing on the far side of the train. It's 300 feet right to the bottom of the gulch there. Highest bridge on the road. Export coal train at Windy Point on a nice winter's day. This is what we would call a beautiful winter day where it's like about 3 degrees. No need to wear a jacket. Unlike today where it's 58 degrees and you need a jacket. Just the difference in the dryness of the air. This is the barge in Whittier. He's got unloading the barge. They have the barge. You can see beneath those containers, they're stacked on top of the bell cars. They haul about 300 of them. You can see V up there. I can see pipe loads up there. I can see containers. So we'll unload the rail, get them in the yard tracks, and then with big forklifts and unload all those containers. And they'll backload the barge, and then put the containers on top, and then that'll take off for Seattle. A 7-day journey. These captains of these boats that take these just to Seattle, I don't know how they do it. One of the captains showed me a video one time, and it just made me sick watching it. This the ups and downs of the storm. So lots of mountains in the Whittier area, lots of snow. Whittier only sees like 30 days of sunshine a year. Very rare. We already saw. This is a work train on top of that same cantilever bridge at Hurricane. 4 Keep 40-2s in the fall color. I think the Alaska Road did a pretty good job matching their colors to the landscape. What about the air dump cars this day? I'm guessing a little wide angle view so you can get a shot of the whole canyon. Yeah, probably, we probably got a shot of the caboose in there somewhere, but again, another shot of Portage with a short Canadian train off the barge. You can always tell the Canadians because they always had lumber loads. Hard now, they're all just one big conglomerate of cars, but the coast, the Denali Star northbound at Broad Pass. And this is a southbound Denali Star at Broad Pass. They meet at Broad Pass. Here on the railroad, they outbound crew usually meet at Broad Pass. They exchange crews and take their train back, take the other train back to their own terminal. So they're never away in the evening time. They're always back home. It is a 12-hour journey, though. This was an NRHS train on branch. You can see they had the 2 Jeeps here, and then they had 40 power cars in the rear. They could make it easier. They don't have to. There's no Y on the Palmer branch, so missed it by that much. That's what I say. I was 15 seconds late for the train here. This is that summer. Still haunts me. But I didn't miss this one. Nice double rainbow. Denali Park on the passenger train as they wait for their passengers at Denali Park. The coast, the export coal train meeting the work train on it after a warm morning, but an overnight snowfall in the winter. This was the first train south, so they kind of plowed snow out. Very fun day to chase the train. A pair of the black units. Not, I can't. I can probably count on my one hand how many times I've gotten these two of the black in together, and probably on my two fingers the times I got three of them all together. But you can see this is a pretty lengthy train. This is one of the Whittier trains meeting the passenger train at Rainbow. And although there's not a rainbow here, it is aptly named because frequently there are rainbows here in this area. This is the way the storm builds in the sun. There's a couple of waterfalls nearby that kind of get some mist, that get some rainbows. So moody weather. I mean, you never know what you're going to get in Alaska. It can change on a dime. It could be sunny in the morning, snowing, and by 2 o'clock, it could be snowing in June. I've had it happen. I'd not say July. I've seen it snow in July up further north, not in Anchorage, but snow in June on occasion. This is probably an April day, southbound Whittier freight. This is one of the evening gravel trains loading in the fall. That's Pine Peak in the background. Another wider view of that train at Beluga early morning. This is a gravel train coming into Anchorage. This is the QAP gravel train returning to Anchorage right there along Cook Inlet in the evening. Another area, that's the coastal trail, the paved trail that goes basically from North Anchorage all the way to South Anchorage, about 20 miles. Lots of hike, bike, very common use trail. This is a South Whittier train approaching Bird. Oh, there's a little bear for you. Every now and then you see something. This one, I like trains to be back and everything, but I like it because it basically shows all three models on the road: 38, G40, and a Mac. It's not too common that they mix them up, but it does happen every now and then. Sunset, CP1140. Some Stormlight. Again, another one of those with a Jeep 38 lead. Happens often, but I like that Bold Alaska and the fall. Pretty good. This is approaching the highway underpass. They'll cross under the highway and get onto the water side. A rare meet between trains, two freight trains anyway. You don't see too many meets between freight trains. Most of them happen at night. But this is the Whittier train meeting the QAP at Campbell. So this is basically in Anchorage, in the city of Anchorage. This is the yard motor crossing the Ship Creek. Hoarfrost day. This is right at the edge of the yard. Plowing some snow. This is the whole configuration of the export coal trains. This is at Girdwood, and in the three on the head end and then three on the road. In this case, of course, they have every now and then they did mix them up. Can't recall what was happening here, but maybe they were going to run a Seward freight. I made one trip to the White Pass since I've been here. That was in 2010 when they opened up the line with their steam rotary and their engines. Quite the event. This is a gravel train going through the Y at Matanuska. They're coming off, they're backing, they came through the Y there, and then they're backing onto the branch. This is what they did before they went to DP. Now the motor on each end, they just pull through, just go straight up the branch. We run trains year round. We have Christmas trains, we have Easter trains, we got Halloween trains. Run just about anything we can. So, this is probably like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, somewhere probably a couple of weeks Christmas. So not a little bit more like there. This is a huge that you see low cloud, pretty weather, but you take what you can get. This is you can even get anchors. That's right there. This is milepost 105. Denali's milepost. Let's just say 342. So a few miles away. Prominently seen in Anchorage. But this is just left the Denali Park Station. Bridge in the background. That's Denali. That's Riley Creek Trestle. Riley Creek in Denali Park. So this is probably the biggest scare I had with a bear when I hiked into this spot, climbed this hill, and I had a brown bear on the tracks there below me. He looked up at me and just made me just a little bit worried. Well, he heard the train, ran off, so didn't have to worry. Export coal train coming back, rolling through Portage, headed back to Anchorage. Oh, I'm sorry, no, this is a DP unit. So this is headed crossing Jet. Well, in the fall, the Denali Star. Another southbound Whittier. Yeah. Pretty cold on this. Early morning freight coming through Beach Lake, coming towards Anchorage, coming through the cove there. You saw that one. This is a train. This looks like a coal train, but it's not. It's a train with a couple of loose cars of coal on the edge. Got to get set out somewhere for whatever reason, so they're bringing them down to Seward. And this is a ASCG travel train between Pioneer Peak and Twin Peaks, right after they put those gosh darn wires in. This is on North Tulip Creek, crossing the bridge there. Extra Jeep 35, 50th and 75th, 5, 3,000 with spreader for anything. Getting some work done. These guys, some serious plot. I left my house like the shot was probably like at maybe noon, 7 o'clock in the morning. Drove 4 hours to get here. The sun never ever rose above the ability to light this scene. Those locomotives were in check all day, which lasted about 3 hours. But the mountains are lit up really nice. Doing some plowing at speed, crossing 4th of July Creek. That's the Alaska Range in the background. If the clouds weren't there, you'd be able to see Denali from right here. There they continue on. Little distant shot. Yeah, this is probably something like 2:45 or 3 o'clock. Windy Point with the export coal train. Portage with the export coal train. Warmer months. This is the winter train. They run a winter train every Saturday to Fairbanks, every Sunday from Fairbanks to Anchorage. So this is coming back towards Anchorage on a Sunday. just probably sometime in March where you're just starting to be able to get light. Uh, it's still at 8 o'clock at night in March. That's when the daylight really starts to shift forward fast. March is one of the best months for clear, clear skies and plenty of sunshine. So probably sunsets probably something like 8:30 in March. So it's a really great time for paint. So I got some Seward Whittier freight, but all that dirt and the snow plows off the highway. Dashing through the snow. More plow crossing. Interestingly, he has the windows open. This is a very cold day. The high light detector at Girdwood. Continuing along, this is actually all that water kind of freezes in the winter. Not the center remains fluid, but everything near shore kind of freezes up. You can see how you got the mountains, you got the railroad, you got the highway, you got Turnagain Arm. Not a lot of room to be shared. This is the winter pasture train up near Nana, Post 415. You got about 45 more miles from Fairbanks, and you're good. They still run a coal train up in Fairbanks. This is the local coal. There's still 4 power plants in Fairbanks that take coal. Coal train from Fairbanks to Usabelli 4 times a week. They also have a small branch there out of Healy, which is what that hopper car is for. It's for the EEA power. There's some kind of ammonia and nitrates like that for their blasting. This is a freight train crossing the. This is a coal train. It's in the river in Neenah. This is where they had the gold spike right here. This is sunrise. So this is coal train. This is one of the few crossings. This is Parks Highway crosses Lasco Road at Rex. There aren't too many of these. There's maybe 5 on the railroad from Anchorage to Fairbanks. This is the local down to the Centrana branch. There's like a little 2-mile spur in Healy that comes down to the power plant and crosses the Nenana River. I've seen it too many. There's maybe 3 photos here. Our version of street running doesn't really run in the middle of the street, but it runs next to the street. And it's going down and switch some customers down here. So pretty neat operation, pretty tight curves. You can see the brakeman ahead getting ready to protect the street crossing there on First Street. Winter turning off. Little black and white. Righty. See all the twists and turns. Pretty much follow the curvature pretty closely. The Winter Aurora, as the name of the train is for the winter, is the Aurora. Here at Nenana. This is the bar. This is the CN bar. 2 switches on the deck. Rail cars only. A max get about 45 cars. So we're getting close to the end here. We recently got a rail geometry boxcar. So which is what we see here on the head of a pipe train that's coming out of sewer. So it's like 50 cars of pipe and the rail geometry car and the 4 max. A gravel train, light and Anchorage Yard. Yeah, this is one with the UP units. This pipe train wrapped around Turnagain Arm here at Bird Creek. That's another fine fishing spot up Bird Creek. A lot of fishermen there. Anchorage Yard in the winter. Pretty scenic, if not. This is a cruise train. On a nice clear morning. That's the Girdwood Valley back there. Pretty famous skiing there at Alyeska Resort. This is approaching Indian, where they dip down below the road. You can see that's a very long train there. This is probably like an 8,000 footer. Train coming into Beach Lake. That's the Alaska Range in the background. And that's the Kinnick arm. Kinnick. That's the Stilla. You can see that those mountains are seen pretty far away. They're seen. This is the freight train crossing under the White's Crossing, the White Detector, and Nancy Lake, and that's the alley in the background. Another view of the same train. Alaska Road has CTC milepost 105 to milepost 195. After that is travel territory. Work train up at Summit in the hall. That's Summit Lake in the background. About ready to cross underneath the trackway. Last passenger go north Aurora at Klutna. So within a couple of days of this train, it starts the summer season. Lumber train coming out of Seward, approaching Girdwood. This is Nenana. In order to gain elevation, they make that 180-degree turn coming out of Nenana along the Nenana River. Make a 180-degree turn to climb elevation and cross the Tanana River. The Tanana River meets the Nenana River in Nenana. And that's the south end. This is a winter train of frac sand come up the barge in Seward. These are pretty heavy trains, get 3 or 4 max. Crossing the Matanuska. Interesting clouds. Container train headed for the Port of Whittier. That's Bird Ridge. Some good light, some visiting fans looking at 20-mile valley with a Whittier freight. Then we turn to the right, nice double rainbow. This is a fare train coming off the Palmer branch at milepost A1. The Alaska Road name numbers, I guess numbers, letters, all their branches A through F. So this is the Palmer branch A. 4 Jeeps headed to Whittier. This is at 20-mile slough. Morning. Exiting Portage Tunnel, crossing Plaza Creek. Empties for the barge. This is in Anchorage. It's the Seward Freight at right where CTC starts, CP 1105. And then right behind that Seward Freight was the this is near the AS&G pit right here where they unload the gravel trains. This is slide zone 2. It doesn't look like much, but this area is very prolific. Last year we caught a freight train going the other direction right here, buried it in snow. And fire department, the lake was all frozen. We had to come and dig the engineer out of there. They were okay. A bit shaken up. freight train coming out of Fair milepost 460. Esther. This is the rear of a cruise train headed back to Seward. The cruise trains for a lot of the passenger ships like Norwegian, Princess, Holland America. They charter their own trains. We run them up to Anchorage and then on the J branch to the airport, where they swap out passengers that are leaving for passengers that are coming. Gravel train, loaded gravel train. My favorite locomotive on the railroad. Some Stormlight as a northbound Denali Star approaches Fairbanks. They got about maybe 3 or 4 miles to go. I'm calling it a day. Interesting at Fairbanks, they turn the train on loop. I don't know why, they just run it around a loop. So they run it through the yard and out there. And then I say this. This is the Indiana River. This is at north of Denali Park, in Heap Canyon. This is at Garner. This is the bypass tunnel. I'm standing on the top. It's an old road bed there to the right of the train where the road comes down from the highway. That goes into the old Garner tunnel, which the south portal still exists. North portal. You see they got a pair of cabooses on the rear. That's the Denali Star crossing underneath the highway, the Parks Highway, coming out of Healy Canyon, approaching Denali Park. And continuing on. A very unusual arrangement for this Denali Star, just to have a Mack and a Jeep. Not very common. The local coal at Esther. This is at Runyon, headed towards Usabelli. Southbound Denali Star at Summit. Highest point on the railroad here. It doesn't look like it, but it's only like 1,400 feet across the Continental Divide. A little early morning action on a Seward train in the Kenai Mountains and when I first arrived in Alaska, they still had these bud cans that they used for the fair train to sit in the evening. Lupine, Glacier Discovery had a freighter coming down the mountain. I think we probably that's the tunnel number 1. Nice rain. Yeah. So this here, bridge coming in. They're gonna get ready to turn. They are head into town. Creek. And this is pretty. I think we're probably at about an hour right now. I don't know. Usually, I added a few extras recently. I think we're probably with the time limit. Is that right, Jonathan? I probably have a few more, but I don't know if we want to keep going or not.
How many more do you figure you have?
That's as soon as I see a Rio Grande photo, I'll know I've reached the end. But I mean, I'm good with whenever.
Do you want to open it up to some questions from the audience? If we can?
Yeah, absolutely.
If anybody has any questions for the speaker, if you could come up here and ask them. Come on up here.
Just really quick, I know next to nothing about Alaska, but why do they favor EMD diesels over General Electric?
Well, basically just for simplicity of parts. The railroad's been an EMD railroad since I've been here, and long before that too. Although they have had Alcos in the past, and I think they just standardized, to be perfectly honest. This is the simplest parts source, and we have to pretty much service all of our own locomotives. Everything's done in-house here, so it just makes it easier. That's my guess, not being a mechanical guy, but I think that's pretty much what it works. They have a lot less parts to store. Right? If we had GEs, we'd have to, we'd have to have more parts. Alaska Roads pretty much, we're owned by the state, but operate as a corporation. We're not state employees. So, probably for simplicity, we have to run our own separate budget. So it's kind of a unique situation. So I think for simplicity's sakes, it's just easier to have one brand.
Is there any other questions from our audience here? So I noticed that there's quite a few shots. Are you using a drone for some of these shots, or you're just climbing
Yes.
these? Okay.
Well, when I first got here, I did a lot of climbing, but then now I'm 61, so I don't do climbing. In 2016 or so, I got a drone, and so I started using it more frequently because here in Alaska, not necessarily on the south end like what we're looking at here, but on the north end, there are lots and lots of trees, and you just don't get the angles like you would unless you had some elevation. Even this is not a drone shot, but this shot was taken from the bed of my pickup truck. Just that little bit of extra elevation really accents the mountains here. And I can tell that this is one of my early shots when I first arrived at 2008, because I can tell that this was my old Konica Minolta digital camera, which was my first, because I see all the sensor spots on here.
We have another question for you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So I actually have two questions.
Okay.
At the beginning of your program, you talked about how they have UP leased power.
Yes.
Okay, so the barges only carry freight cars. So how do they get? Is there an interchange with the CP or the CN to get those locomotives up there, or does the UP just straight up?
No, there is no There was a barge from CN, but no, the locomotives go on the barge.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. I thought you said that the barges only carry freight cars.
Yeah, that was in generalization, just because we don't generally ship locomotives up here. That most of the time there's just barges and freight cars. But when those UP leasers came up here, they did come up on the barge.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have any other questions from our audience here? I thank you so much, Frank, for being able to share your beautiful photos. I mean, this is just really awesome to be able to see. For myself, a part of the country I haven't been to. Just amazing photos.
You're welcome. My pleasure. I'm glad you invited me for an opportunity. It was great to share. Alaska's just one of those places I think that most people should get a chance to visit if they can. It is one of those places I think that's like you can either love it or hate it. Especially if you're visiting here, because the weather is just one of those crazy things. Might get weather like this in this picture, which, for somebody that lives here might be okay. But if you're on vacation, this may not be what you want to see. I mean, well, yeah. So sometimes I look at the passenger trains as they're going by. I see all the passengers in there and it's a sunny day. I'm like super happy for them. But it's just a cloudy day and I know they can't even see the mountains. I'm like, man, so sad for them that they don't get a chance to see something more than just clouds. I think this is the last one, but anyway, yeah, there you go. It was a pleasure. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for doing a great presentation for us here in Cincinnati. We greatly appreciate you. When you do to Kentucky, certainly come out and see us. We'd be happy.
I definitely will do that. And I won't be that
again.
far away. I'm in very western Kentucky. Cincinnati is like about 4 hours away.
Definitely would love to see you here.
All right. Well, thanks again for the invitation. I hope everybody enjoyed.
Thank you for watching. To learn more about the Cincinnati Railroad Club, visit our website, cincinnati.rrclub.org. And you can support programs like this by becoming a member of the club as well. Learn more at our website, cincinnati.rrclub.org. And while you're here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to our YouTube channel.